I welcome you all. Today we'll be going to start biology chapter of class 10th, life process. In this chapter, we will be going to understand about the different life processes which are helpful in the maintenance of our life or in the smooth functioning of our life. So different processes which are involved in our body are, first of all, nutrition. As you all know, without food we cannot live. So nutrition is very important. Then metabolism is also called as digestion. Reproduction, transportation, respiration and excretion. So these are the different life processes which are helping in the maintenance of our life. So one by one, we will be going to understand about all these life processes. So what is life process? First question is this, that how we will define life process. So life process is a process which together perform the function of maintenance of life. And the different life processes which are helping in maintaining our life is nutrition, digestion, respiration, transportation, excretion and reproduction. So first of all, we will focus on nutrition and its different types. So nutrition is simply the process of obtaining food from the surroundings and then utilizing that food for different activities. When we eat food, only then we get energy to do work. So, process of taking food is nutrition and then utilizing that food to do work. Otherwise, our body will be very lethargic, will not feel energy to do any kind of work. So basically, nutritions are of two types. Mainly, they are categorized as the autotrophic nutrition and heterotrophic nutrition. Auto means self and trophic means nutrition. So autotrophic nutrition is self-nutrition. That is, the organism is preparing their food by the help of inorganic materials. And this type of nutrition is followed by green plants. They are preparing their own food by the process of photosynthesis. Then hetero means dependent. So when the organisms are dependent on other organisms for their food, such type of nutrition is called as heterotrophic nutrition. So we animals and other organisms are also somehow directly or indirectly dependent on the plants for our food, right? So heterotrophic nutrition are of three types. One is parasitic. Parasitic means the organism is living inside the body of another organism, which is called as host, and deriving the nutrition from its body. At the same time, the parasite is harming the body of the host. Then saprotrophic nutrition or saprophytic nutrition. In this, the organism is feeding on dead and decaying matter, right? Then holozoic nutrition. We all, that is human beings as well as animals and some unicellular animals also such as amoeba, they follow holozoic nutrition. In holozoic nutrition, what happens? The solid food is taken inside and then the digestive enzymes are released out out and they digest the food. All right. So these are the main types of the nutrition, the main modes of nutrition and their further classification. So let's understand what is the difference between autotrophic and heterotrophic. This I already explained you, but still let's read out that what is the difference between autotrophic and heterotrophic. As I already told you, auto means self-nutrition, hetero means dependent nutrition. So the kind of nutrition in which an organism is preparing the food from inorganic material. What are the inorganic materials? The inorganic materials over here are carbon dioxide and water. So plants are utilizing carbon dioxide and water to prepare their food by the process of photosynthesis. Photo means light over here. That means apart from carbon dioxide and water, plants are also using sunlight to synthesize or to prepare their food. And also there is fourth raw material which plants are utilized. All of you know that only green plants can make their food. So green color is due to the presence of chlorophyll. So plants are preparing their food by the help of four ingredients. You can say, as if we want to prepare any dish, we want ingredients, right? So plants also need four things or four raw materials, or you can say four ingredients to prepare their food. That is carbon dioxide, water, sunlight and chlorophyll. Similarly, heterotrophic plants are the heterotrophic nutrition is the kind of nutrition in which organisms do not possess the ability to synthesize their own food. They depend on autotrophs or other animals for their food directly or indirectly. For example, animals, fungus and human beings also. So this equation will clear the process of autotrophic nutrition. Autotrophs are basically the organisms which are having the autotrophic nutrition. So autotrophs are using the simple inorganic material and then converting it into a complex high energy molecules which are called as carbohydrate. So in autotrophic nutrition, it can be summarized, or we can say the photosynthesis process. It can be summarized in this one equation in which 6 molecules of carbon dioxide are combined with 12 molecules of water in presence of sunlight and chlorophyll to give 1 molecule of carbohydrate. C6H12O6 is the formula for carbohydrate, and 6 molecules of oxygen are produced and 6 molecules of water are left. All of you know that photosynthesis mein we are getting food as well as we are getting the oxygen, and hence plants are playing a very important role in our life, because due to these two things we are able to survive. If we will not get food, will not get oxygen, we will die. And that is why it is very important that we should protect our forest, we should take care of our environment and we should plant trees. Otherwise our life will be in danger. So moving on to the next part, that is, these are the raw materials of photosynthesis. In the board question is asked, what are the different raw materials for photosynthesis? What is the equation of photosynthesis? What is photosynthesis? So sometimes long question is there that define photosynthesis, what are the raw materials for photosynthesis, write down the equation of photosynthesis. So you need to be very clear and you have to give very accurate answer to the point answer. So raw materials means we have 4 raw materials in photosynthesis: sunlight, chlorophyll, carbon dioxide and water. So how do the plant are getting these raw material? So gases, that is carbon dioxide, is coming by the help of the stomata in the plants. Stomata is present in the lower epidermis of the plant, which are the tiny pores, and they help in exchange of the gases. And water along with the minerals is transported through the xylem tissue. This you have already read in class 9th about vascular tissues. So this is how the raw materials they reach to the leaves so that plants can do photosynthesis. And sunlight is absorbed by the chlorophyll, which is present in the chloroplast. Okay, so chloroplast is a cell organelle which is green in color, and this green color of the chloroplast is due to the presence of chlorophyll in the leaf. So chlorophyll help in the absorption of the sunlight. And therefore, site of photosynthesis, if it is asked in your exam, name the site of photosynthesis. Site of photosynthesis is leaf. Leaf is also called as kitchen, right? Because food is prepared in the leaves due to the presence of chlorophyll. So, this thing you already know, whatever I have told till now, because in junior classes you have read these things. But the new concept which is added in class 10th is this, that what are the main events of photosynthesis. Before going into detail of these main events, let's understand this diagram of the leaf. This is the cross section of the leaf. From outside, leaf appears like this. But if we'll see the cross section, we'll cut the leaf and see the cross section of the leaf under microscope, we will find it like this. So this is the upper epidermis of the leaf. These are the cells which are storing the chloroplast, which has chlorophyll. The green color pigment present in chloroplast is called chlorophyll. These are air spaces, and then you can see these pores in the lower epidermis of the leaf. These pores are called as the stomata, which have guard cells. And through this stomata, carbon dioxide comes in the leaf and oxygen moves out of the leaf. So the events which are taking place in the process of photosynthesis, this is also a very important question, that what are the main events taking place in photosynthesis. So the main events which are taking place in photosynthesis are, number 1 is absorption of sunlight, that is absorption of light energy, and then plants are converted into the chemical energy. So absorption of light energy by the chlorophyll is the first event. In second event, there is a conversion of the light energy into the chemical energy. Chemical energy in the form of food, right? And this conversion takes place by splitting of the water molecule. It takes place by the splitting of the water molecule. Number 2 is this, and third main event is the reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrates. So third event is reduction of carbon dioxide to carbohydrate. With these 3 events, the process of photosynthesis completes. So let's understand the structure and function of the stomata. You see this picture, this is of stomata. Okay, these are guard cells. They are also called as kidney shaped cells. There is one stoma, which is the opening of the stomata, and this is the closed stomata. In this stomata, you can see this red colored nucleus is there, chloroplast, vacuole, this is guard cell and the cell wall. So stomata, as I already explained you, that stomata are the tiny pores which are present on the lower surface of the leaf, and they have two functions. Number one is exchange of gases. Number two is loss of the water by the process of transpiration. Next, we have to understand the different types. So, one by one, we'll be understanding the definitions of types of heterotrophic nutrition. So, holozoic nutrition, as I already explained you in the starting, that it is a type of nutrition which all of us are following. In this, we are taking the solid food inside, and then with the help of the enzymes in our body, food is broken down into the simpler substances. So such type of nutrition is called as holozoic nutrition. Example is amoeba. Amoeba is a unicellular organism, and animals. Animals include human beings also. Saprophytic nutrition. In this nutrition, the organism is feeding on dead and decaying matter. For example, fungus. Parasite or parasitic nutrition. In this, the parasite is living inside the body of the host and derive nutrition from it. For example, Cuscuta, which is a plant parasite, and ticks, which is the animal parasite. So let's understand in detail nutrition in animals. Here we will understand about nutrition of amoeba. Amoeba is basically a unicellular organism. All the functions of the body are performed by this single cell only. So amoeba takes the food. This is the amoeba, you can see. This is the nucleus and this is the structure of irregular structure of amoeba. These elongations, they are pseudopodia. These elongations are called pseudopodia. Here you can see this elongation, these elongated parts, they are called as pseudopodia, and with the help of these pseudopodia, amoeba is able to move. So, if a food is lying outside the body, first of all, amoeba will move with the help of pseudopodia and form a food vacuole like this around the food, so that this vacuole enters into the body of the amoeba. Now here, this amoeba will release certain enzymes which are called as digestive enzymes, and this food will be digested. And the undigested food will be released out of the body of the amoeba. So this nutrition process completes in 5 steps. This is the first step, which is the process of ingestion. So this is the first step, ingestion. The food is taken inside the body, right? Then the food is digested by the amoeba, and digested food is absorbed by its body, and then after absorption, the undigested food is removed out of the body. So these are the different steps in the nutrition of amoeba, right? And this is also a very important question. Sometimes only this diagram is given and you have to label the different steps. So you need to practice this diagram, and labeling of the diagram is also, so this labeling is also very important. So this is our human digestive system, our next topic. This diagram, you must all be familiar with this diagram of human digestive system. This is our mouth, this is nasal cavity, this is pharynx, this is esophagus, here is the salivary gland, this is the liver, the largest gland of our body, this is gallbladder, stomach, this is large intestine, then we have smaller intestine, rectum and anus. So these are the different parts of our digestive system. Let's continue with the topic of human digestive system or nutrition in human beings. So here the different organs involved in digestive system of human are, you must be knowing because you are studying from lower classes. The organ involved is mouth, esophagus, stomach, small intestine, large intestine, rectum and anus. The other name of human digestive system is alimentary canal. So these organs together form our digestive system. The glands involved in our digestive system are salivary gland, gastric gland, pancreas and liver. Liver is the largest gland of our body. Now in digestion, in you can say nutrition of the animals, there are different steps involved. 5 major steps are involved. First is ingestion. Ingestion is simply intake of food. As soon as you keep the food in your mouth, the process is called as ingestion. So ingestion starts in the mouth. Then after eating the food, what happens? You chew the food, right? As soon as you chew the food, various liquid, it comes in your mouth. That liquid is coming from this gland called salivary gland. The salivary gland is basically secreting the saliva, and this saliva contains an enzyme called salivary amylase. This salivary amylase is helping in the process of digestion. As soon as you keep the food in your mouth, the process of digestion starts. Alright. So the carbohydrate which is present in the food, it starts converting into the sugars in your mouth in presence of salivary amylase, which is secreted from the saliva. Salivary amylase is also called as ptyalin enzyme, Ptylin. So you can do one activity over here. Initially, when we keep a chapati in our mouth, a piece of chapati without any vegetable, when you will keep a piece of chapati or rice in your mouth and you will chew the food properly, at least it is said that one should chew the food 16 to 17 times. So once you will chew the food properly, initially it will be not tasting you, but when you chew it properly, the food will start tasting sweeter. So that means the carbohydrate which is present in the food has been converted into the sugar by this salivary amylase. The next step is digestion. Digestion is basically breaking of the complex food into the simpler substances, right? So I already explained you that digestion starts where? Digestion starts in mouth. Which food is digested in the mouth? Carbohydrate is digested in the mouth. Okay. So once you have chewed the food properly, now the food from the mouth will come to the esophagus. Through esophagus it will reach stomach. So the movements which are taking place in the esophagus are peristaltic movement. Peristaltic movements are the contraction and relaxation of the muscles of the esophagus. And this contraction and relaxation will push the food towards the stomach. Once the food reaches to the stomach, what happens? The digestion of the protein starts. Now, for the digestion of protein in stomach, there are gastric gland are secreting gastric juices. So, gastric gland secrete gastric juice when food enters in the stomach. Now, there are three things present in this gastric juice. Number one is mucus. Now, mucus is a slimy substance, sticky substance. Another is hydrochloric acid, which is called as HCl, and the third is enzyme, that is pepsin enzyme. So, all these together forms gastric juice. Now, initially, why mucus is required in our stomach? So, in stomach, what happens? There is acid in this gastric juice. So, acid will do the burning sensation on the walls of the stomach. So, to prevent that burning sensation, the mucus lining covers the walls of the stomach and they will prevent your stomach from the ulcers. I hope you understand what are ulcers. Ulcers are the छाले जो आपके कभी माउथ में हो जाते हैं. So these ulcers, they can be very harmful, and these ulcers are due to the production of the acid. So to prevent the ulcers in the stomach, the gastric juice contains mucus. So this mucus will cover the inner boundary of the stomach so that acid will not come in contact with the wall of the stomach. Now, function of HCl is when we eat food, there are many microorganisms also. So they might enter into the food when we are eating it. So to kill those microorganisms, HCl is secreted. And the second function of HCl is that this pepsin enzyme needs the acidic medium to work. So this pepsin in the stomach will do what? It will work on the protein part of the food. Carbohydrate is being partially digested in your mouth. Now the digestion of protein will start in the stomach. And what happens? There is a pepsin enzyme which in presence of acid will break proteins into peptones. Right? So after that, this food will start entering into the small intestine. But here what will happen? As these food will reach to the small intestine, there is a sprinkling of the bile juice. You see this bile juice? This bile juice is prepared by the liver, and after preparing this bile juice, liver stored it into the gallbladder. So gallbladder will sprinkle the bile juice onto the food. Now why this sprinkling is done? Because here in the stomach there was acid. So here in stomach mucus was there to prevent the burning sensation from the acid. But in small intestine there is no mucus. So that medium of the food needs to be changed. So here to change the medium of the food from acidic to the basic or from acidic to the alkaline, this bile juice is very important. Right? Also, second function of bile juice is that the fat which is present in the food will get converted into small droplets by the help of bile juice. And this process is called as emulsification. Right. So, then in small intestine, there is another gland called pancreas, which will secrete pancreatic juices. Now, these pancreatic juices contains trypsin, lipase and amylase enzyme. So, in small intestine, the sugars which were formed by the digestion of the carbohydrate in the mouth by the action of pancreatic amylase will be converted into glucose. So, from carbohydrate, complex carbohydrate, the simpler glucose is formed after the digestion. So, end product of the digestion of carbohydrate is glucose. Then, the protein has been converted into the peptones into the stomach. Now, in small intestine, by the help of this pancreatic juice, which contains the enzyme trypsin, this will be helping in conversion of peptones into amino acid. So, final end product of the digestion of protein is amino acid. Then, the fat emulsification has started at the entry of the small intestine. Now, with the help of this pancreatic juice, which contain enzyme lipase, these fat droplets will be converted into fatty acid and glycerol. Right? So, end product of digestion of fat is fatty acid and glycerol. So, we can say that digestion starts in mouth and ends in small intestine. Right. Now, the third step involved in animal nutrition is absorption. So, once the food is digested, it needs to be transported to different parts of the body. And before that, it needs to be absorbed. It needs to be stored so that whenever there is a requirement, it can be released. So, for absorption, in this small intestine is like this. Okay. It has many finger-like projections. These finger-like projections, they are helping in the absorption of digested food. Now, why this finger-like projection is required? Because if the walls of the intestine will be like this, then they will get less surface area for absorption. But due to this finger-like projection, the surface area for the absorption is more. So, absorption is simply helping in storing of the food in these villi. These are called as villi. V-I-L-L-I. Right. Once the food is absorbed, this food need to be sent to different parts of the body wherever they are required, and this process is called as assimilation. Right. Assimilation is distribution of the food, digested food, to different parts of the body. Now, whatever we eat, it is not necessary that all is being digested or utilized by the body. There is some undigested food also left in the body which needs to be removed out of the body, and that process is called as egestion. Egestion means removing the undigested food from the body, and in that process the food is removed by this anus. In large intestine, what happened? Large intestine, whatever undigested food is there, it moves, and large intestine help in absorption of the water from that food, and then the fecal matter is stored in the rectum, and through anus the fecal matter is removed out of the body, and that process is called as egestion. So this was all about human digestive system. I hope all of you have understood. So we will move on to the next part of the chapter. Good morning class. Today we have to start off with the new topic of the chapter life process, that is respiration in plants and animals. So before starting the chapter, I just wanted to know that how many of you know what is respiration. Respiration we have all you must have studied in previous classes also. Respiration is basically involving not just breathing. Some of you will, the thing will come that respiration means breathing. So here in higher classes we are not dealing just with breathing. Respiration involves much more things than breathing. So let's see. First of all, I will just introduce you with the terms which will be going to often encounter in this study of respiratory system or respiration. So first of all, respiratory system is basically, it is responsible for the exchange of gases, which is called breathing. So exchange of gases is actually breathing. So between the body and the external environment. Then pharynx is basically a throat. It is a tube connected to the nose and mouth. It is a common passage, common area where the nose and mouth opening is there. Larynx is also called as the voice box, which is a tube forming a passage between the pharynx and the trachea. Trachea is the tube which is connecting the larynx of the bronchi of the lungs. Bronchi are the branches of the tissue stemming from the, which is arising from the trachea. Okay. Then bronchiole are the sub branches of the bronchi. Bronchi, you can say it is a main branch from which the many branches are coming out, which are called as bronchiole, and that each branch is ending with a structure, which a balloon like structure, which is called as the alveoli. Diaphragm is basically the thoracic muscle that lays beneath the lungs, and it is basically helping in, it is acting as a protective cover for our lungs, because our lungs are very delicate, and also it is helping in the intake of air and exhalation of the air, right? So now let's coming back to our first question, what is respiration basically? So respiration involves both gaseous exchange, which we called as the breathing, and it involves the cellular breakdown of the food. So respiration is gaseous exchange in which the intake of oxygen from the atmosphere and release of carbon dioxide is there, right? And then the cellular breakdown of the food is there, breakdown of simple food in order to release the energy. So previously we have studied that the food is digested and it is being converted into amino acid, glucose, and then glycerols and fatty acid. So second part of respiration is the breakdown of this glucose molecule basically to release the energy, and that is what we called as the cellular respiration. So respiration involves two parts, that is breathing and cellular respiration, in which the breaking down of food takes place to release the energy. Next is some common the features which are common in respiration are, some common features of respiratory organs are, number one, or generally the respiratory organs are having the large surface area so that maximum diffusion of gases can occur, right? When we talk about gases, the only process which is helping in exchange of gases is diffusion, that is from higher concentration to the lower concentration. This also we have already read in 9th class, what is diffusion. Then the walls of the organs of the respiratory system are very permeable and very thin walled, so that easily the gases can be exchanged. Then they are richly supplied with blood vessels, because the oxygen which is needed by the cell will be dissolved in the blood. So respiratory organs are richly supplied with blood vessels for quick transport of the gases. So these are some of the features which are common in respiratory organs in respiratory system. Then we will discuss about different types of respiration. Basically, we divide respiration in two types, that is aerobic respiration and anaerobic respiration. So aerobic respiration is taking place in presence of oxygen, and anaerobic means in absence of oxygen or very little supply of the oxygen. Generally, when food or glucose is broken down in presence of oxygen, it is completely oxidized and it produces carbon dioxide and water. Fine. When the oxygen is end products of carbon dioxide and water, then when more energy is released in aerobic respiration, and aerobic respiration is always taking place in the cytoplasm and mitochondria. Fine. The complete oxidation of glucose takes place in aerobic respiration, and aerobic respiration is generally occurring in most of the organism. So when we talk about the aerobic respiration, so glucose is broken down into pyruvate. Okay, pyruvate is a 3 carbon compound, glucose is a 6 carbon compound. So this conversion of glucose into pyruvate takes place in the cytoplasm, and then pyruvate, it is broken down into the carbon dioxide and water, and large amount of energy in the form of ATP, that is 38 ATP molecules are released. And this process of conversion of pyruvate into carbon dioxide, water and energy is taking place in mitochondria. Right, in anaerobic respiration, as I already told you, that it is taking place in absence of oxygen, and generally either it takes place in muscles when the supply of the oxygen is very limited, or it takes place in microorganisms such as yeast. If it is taking place in microorganisms such as yeast, the end product is ethanol and carbon dioxide. If it is taking place in the muscles, generally when a person is doing very heavy exercise, okay, then what happens, the intake of the amount of oxygen required is increased, and that increased oxygen demand cannot be met by the aerobic respiration. In that case, the muscles, they start respiring anaerobically and they release the energy. Very little amount of energy is released. In that case, hardly 2 ATP of energy is released, and lactic acid is formed, which accumulates in our muscle, and due to this accumulation of lactic acid, we generally person gets muscle cramp during heavy exercise. So in anaerobic respiration, less amount of energy is released, and this anaerobic respiration is generally taking place in cytoplasm. We talked that aerobic respiration taking place in cytoplasm as well as in mitochondria. Here in anaerobic respiration, because oxygen supply is not complete, therefore incomplete oxidation of glucose takes place, and it can be seen in bacteria, yeast, and in human beings it occurs when we do vigorous exercise, that is in muscles. So the equation for the breakdown of glucose in yeast is glucose converted into pyruvate, pyruvate gets converted into ethanol, carbon dioxide and very less energy. In muscle cells, glucose gets broken down into pyruvate, and pyruvate gets broken down into the lactic acid and energy. Energy currency is basically ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. Right. Now this is the flow chart for breakdown of glucose, and this is same that we have discussed in the previous slide, and this is very important question. It generally is asked in 3-mark question, that explain the breakdown of glucose by various pathway. So in that question, you don't have to write anything, you have to just draw this flow chart. It is there in NCERT also. So glucose in cytoplasm is converted into pyruvic acid and energy. It is for all the three cases, in muscles also, in mitochondria, for mitochondria also, and for the yeast. First step is this only in all three cases, that glucose will be converted into pyruvic acid. So one glucose is there. So it is a 6 carbon atom compound. From one glucose, 2 pyruvic acid will be formed, because pyruvate is 3 carbon compound. Now when there is ample supply of the oxygen, that is aerobic respiration, which is generally in mitochondria, this pyruvate or pyruvic acid will release carbon dioxide, water and energy. A very large amount of energy is released, that is 38 ATP molecules are released. Then pyruvic acid, in case of muscle, when a person is doing a very heavy exercise, then there is limited supply of the oxygen in the muscle, due to which this pyruvate or pyruvic acid gets broken down into lactic acid and energy. Here very less energy is released, that is around 2 ATP molecule of energy is released. And when it is taking place, the breakdown is taking place in microorganisms such as yeast, that is in absence of oxygen, the end products are formed are ethanol, carbon dioxide and energy, and this generally occurs in fermentation. So this is the pathway for breakdown of the glucose in various organisms, right? I hope this is clear, and this is very very important, so you all need to learn it by heart. Next is the passage of the air inside our body. We are talking about human respiratory system right now, so we should know what all the organs are involved in our respiratory system. So first is this nostril. From the nose we all are breathing, we are taking in air. Then there is a nasal passage, nasal cavity, air travels to nasal cavity, then to pharynx, then to larynx, then to trachea, bronchi, lungs, bronchioles and alveolar. So I told you this main stem is the this is the trachea, which is a cartilaginous ring structure, and then this trachea is divided into two main branches which are called as bronchi, and then bronchi are further divided into these sub branches which are called as bronchiole. And here we can see that each bronchiole is ending with the alveoli, which is a balloon like structure, and these alveoli are richly supplied with blood vessels. Fine, so that exchange of gases can take place between blood and alveoli, right? Now we are talking about human respiratory system. So this is the pathway which we have discussed in previous diagram also, and we know that trachea is the ring, there are cartilaginous rings present in the trachea. Question comes, why trachea is covered with cartilaginous rings? So trachea is covered with cartilaginous rings because trachea is very you can say soft. We have already discussed the features of respiratory organs, that respiratory organs are having very thin membrane. Why? So that easily exchange of gases can take place. So this trachea is provided with cartilaginous rings so that it does not collapse. Fine. So that is why it is provided with the cartilaginous rings. Lungs, they are generally present in the thoracic cavity, and over them the diaphragm is present, and they are very spongy elastic bags which are consisting of bronchi and bronchioles and alveoli. Fine. Now how respiration occurs in the human body? So basically respiration is occurring in two parts. I already explained you that one is the breathing. Breathing is external, that is we are taking in air from the environment and we are giving out. Air is having the oxygen, we believe, and the air which we are breathing out, it is having more concentration of the carbon dioxide. So this is the process which we call external breathing, and it is very mechanical process. Then once the air is coming inside the body, the second part it gets activated, and that is cellular respiration, in which mechanism of breathing, what is happening, simple inhalation and exhalation is taking place, but in the next part what is taking place, the exchange of gases is actually taking place. So simple breathing is we are taking in air and we are giving out the air which is rich in carbon dioxide. And once we are taking air which is rich in oxygen, that oxygen will be used to break down the food and release the energy. Fine. Now unicellular organisms are single celled organisms. They are not having many cells. So in them the simple respiration is taking place by simple diffusion, that is exchange of gases. In multicellular organism, as the body size is large, diffusion alone is not enough. So respiratory pigments are also required, and these respiratory pigment is present in the, you can say, blood, and the respiratory pigment is hemoglobin. So oxygen will combine with this hemoglobin and then it will be transported to different parts of the body. So this is called as respiratory pigment. Fine. And this respiratory pigment is present in RBCs, okay, red blood cells. Now it has high affinity for oxygen. Hemoglobin is having the high affinity for the oxygen. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen, so it gets dissolved in blood and is thus transported. So it is having high affinity for oxygen. Carbon dioxide is more soluble in water than oxygen, so it gets dissolved in blood and is thus transported, right? Next. Next we are discussing about mechanism of breathing. So mechanism of breathing involve inhalation and exhalation. When we inhale, what happens? Our chest cavity expands, ribs they will come outwards and diaphragm will go downwards, due to which the space increases in the thoracic cavity and our lungs expand. And when our lungs expand, the air rushes into our lungs. During exhalation, what happens? Diaphragms goes to its original position, ribs come back to its original position, the cavity gets reduced and the air will rush out of the body, right? So this is how the inhalation and exhalation is taking place in our body. So this, you can see that here when we are taking in air, what happens? The ribs they are moving outward and diaphragm is coming downwards, due to which the cavity is increased and air will move inside. But when we are exhaling, diaphragm is coming back to its original position, ribs are returning to their normal position and the space is reduced, to which air is moved outwards. So this is how the exchange of gases between alveolus and blood and tissues takes place. Air which is rich in oxygen, it is moved to the blood and the blood is going to the oxygen and binding to the hemoglobin. Oxygen is released in the tissues and carbon dioxide from the tissue is coming back to the blood. It is dissolved in blood and blood vessels which are present in the alveoli, they will release carbon dioxide will be released in the alveolar sac and then it will be sent out through the nostril. So this is the pathway of exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide, and we already know that the exchange will take place from higher concentration to the lower concentration. The air which is coming from the outside is rich in oxygen, it is having more oxygen, so and the cells are having less oxygen, so the oxygen from the blood, oxygen from the alveoli will be coming to the blood, and now blood is having more carbon dioxide and therefore the blood will transport the carbon dioxide to the alveoli and the alveoli will send it to outside the body. So now we'll be going to discuss about respiratory organs which are present in other organisms. In terrestrial organisms such as earthworm, it respires through skin. Cockroach has tracheal system for respiration. Insects has spiracles for respiration. In aquatic organism, they are using the oxygen which is dissolved in water. So fish is having a gills for respiration. Frog is living both on land and water. So on land it respires through lung, and in water through skin, and it is also having gills also for respiration. Dolphins and whales have blowholes. Now fish have aquatic animals, their rate of breathing is higher as compared to terrestrial organism, because they are acquiring the oxygen which is dissolved in the water. Fine. Therefore their breathing rate is faster. Now next is respiration in plants. Of all living organisms, they need respiration. Fine, whether they are animals or they are plants. Fine. Plants also respire. It is different fact that plants are doing photosynthesis, but that doesn't mean that plants are doing photosynthesis so they will not respire. They do respire. During daytime their rate of respiration is less, but during night time their rate of respiration is higher. So they respire through stomata and through lenticels which are present in the roots of the or in the stems, and in the roots they are respiring through the general process of diffusion. So these are the respiratory organs of the plants. Method of respiration is diffusion only, and because diffusion is the only process by which plant can exchange gas. So related to this, we have some home assignment questions. Number 1 says explain the breakdown of glucose with the help of flowchart. The flowchart is already discussed in the PPT. You can go through there and you can write down the answer. Aerobic and anaerobic respiration difference is already there in the PPT. You can go there and you can recall the differences. Breathing and respiration, I told you that breathing is simple inhalation and exhalation, that is taking in air and giving out air, and respiration is breathing plus the cellular breakdown of the food. Explain the exchange of gases in human beings with the help of human respiratory system, that is also discussed in the PPT. Why fish has higher rate of breathing? Just now I told you that fishes are having higher rate of breathing because they are using the oxygen which is dissolved in the water. Then respiratory organ of cockroach is tracheal system. Insect is having spiracles, and whales are respiring through blowholes. I hope the concept of respiratory system in plants and animals is clear to you, and you will be able to understand this topic with the help of this presentation. Thank you very much. So now we will understand about the next topic, that is transportation in human beings. Transportation in human beings is also called as the circulatory system. The question comes, what are the components of the transportation system in human beings? Yeah, what are the components of circulatory system? Welcome. Now our next topic is transportation in human beings. Transportation is also called as circulatory system. So the main transporting agent in our body is blood. Blood is helping in transportation of different materials in our body. Blood is the connective tissue. This you have learnt in class 9, that it is a fluid connective tissue. It is having plasma, RBCs, WBCs, platelets, and it is helping in the transport of nutrients, waste products, and also it is helping in the defense of our body. They are the part of our immune system. WBCs are the part of our immune system. WBCs are called white blood cells. RBCs are called red blood cells. RBCs are having red color because of the presence of a respiratory pigment which is called as hemoglobin. This hemoglobin is helping in the transport of oxygen to different parts of our body. So next component of our transportation system is blood vessels. Blood vessels are of three types, that is arteries, veins and capillaries. Arteries, they are carrying the pure blood, that means oxygenated blood, to all parts of the body. The wall of the artery is thick and they do not have valves. Valves means if this is your pipeline, okay, there is a pipeline, the blood is flowing in the pipes inside our body and those pipes are called as the blood vessels. Okay, if the pipe is not having any door, that door is actually the valves. So you can say arteries के अंदर there is no door, no valves. Why is it so? Because in arteries the oxygenated blood is flowing with a great pressure and therefore valves are absent in the arteries. Arteries are generally deep-seated. They are not superficial. They are deep-seated. And next is veins. Veins are the blood vessels which carry the deoxygenated blood. So, deoxygenated blood is also called as impure blood and their walls are thin. The blood in the veins is moving slowly and therefore they are superficial and they are having the valves. You can see over here these green lines on your body. You can see these green colored blood vessels are veins and they carry deoxygenated blood. Capillaries are very narrow blood vessels and they are connecting, they are forming a network between the arteries and veins and help in exchange of food, water, oxygen and carbon dioxide between them. Next major component of our circulatory system is the heart. So heart is the pumping organ in our body and this is a human heart, typical human heart. It is of a size of a fist of our hand. Okay, so this much size is of the heart in our body and this is four-chambered heart. You can see this is right atrium, this is left atrium, this is right ventricle, this is left ventricle. Okay, this aorta is the main artery. Rest of the arteries are joining in this aorta and similarly this vena cava is the vein, main vein. All the veins, they pour their you can say blood actually in this vena cava. So this outermost covering is called septum. Okay, and it has the pericardium is this black color layer which you can see. Fine, these are the walls. You can see these are the doors which are separating the right atrium from the right ventricle and left atrium from the left ventricle, and these doors are called valve. So this valve is the tricuspid valve which is present in the right half and this valve is called as the bicuspid valve or mitral valve which is present on the right side of the heart. Right. So this is a typical pathway which is shown here for the circulation of the blood. This blue color part is showing the deoxygenated blood and this red color part is showing the flow of oxygenated blood or pure blood. So let's understand the pathway of the blood flow in our heart. So in this circulatory system, human beings, in human beings, we have three components: heart, blood vessels, and we have blood. Okay, so what happened during the circulation of the blood in the human heart? So right atrium is relaxed. Okay, when right atrium contracts, then what happened? The right ventricle, it relaxes. Fine. Then right ventricle will contract and the blood will go to the lungs. So basically what happened? The deoxygenated blood is collected from all over the body through the veins and through the vena cava. The secretions are the deoxygenated blood which is brought by the veins. It is poured into the vena cava, and vena cava bring that deoxygenated blood to the right atrium, which is relaxed. Now this relaxed right atrium, through the valve, it will pour the blood into the right atrium, which is in contraction state. Further, after contracting, this blood will go to the right ventricle, right? And from the right ventricle, when right ventricle will contract, the blood will go to the lungs. Why blood is going to the lungs? It is going for bringing the oxygen. So you must have seen blood is entering into the heart and then going out of the heart towards the lung. Now, when the blood is taken to the lungs, the deoxygenated blood is taken to the lungs by the pulmonary artery. I explained you that arteries carry oxygenated blood, but the exceptional case is pulmonary artery, which carries the deoxygenated blood from heart to the lungs. Now, the blood has gained the oxygen from the lungs. Now, oxygenated blood will be brought forward to the left atrium by pulmonary vein. Veins are basically carrying the deoxygenated blood, but the vein which is bringing the oxygenated blood from the lung to the heart is called pulmonary vein, and it is the exceptional case. So now oxygenated blood will come from the lungs to the left atrium. Then from the left atrium, the blood will go to the left ventricle. And from left ventricle, it will go to the main artery, which is called as aorta. And aorta will distribute the blood to the arteries to take to the different parts of the body. So this is how the circulation of the blood is taking place in our body. So I hope you have understood this circulation, and this flow chart is very, very important. If you are not able to write the mechanism of transportation of the blood in the body, then you can only draw this flow chart, but in correct manner. Now here we have understood that blood is coming to the heart once, then going out and then coming back. So this type of circulation is called as double circulation. So circulation in our heart is divided in two phases. One phase is called as pulmonary circulation and the another phase is called as systematic circulation. And these two phases together forms double circulation. Now we'll discuss about our other parts of our blood, that is lymph. Okay, lymph is the extracellular fluid similar to the plasma and it is colorless. Okay, and its function is same as that of the blood. but the only thing is that lymph are not able to transport oxygen because they are colorless, they do not have hemoglobin. Rest all functions they are performing as that of blood. In higher animals, for example birds and mammals, what happens? Oxygenated blood and deoxygenated blood are completely separated. As I have already told you, there is a partition between the right part of the heart and the left part of the heart by the help of septum. So if there is a partition, then the efficiency of the you can say the efficiency increases. Okay, efficiency of the supply of the oxygen will increase. And this is to fulfill why it is required in higher organism. The more oxygen is required in the higher animals because there is a higher energy demand and to maintain the body temperature. Fine. Next, in the aquatic animals such as reptiles and amphibians, and we can also call them as cold-blooded animals, they are having three-chambered heart. Okay, so there is little mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood in their body. Therefore, their body temperatures varies, and hence they are called as the cold-blooded organism. Now we will understand about that how transportation takes place in plants. In the humans or other animals, there is heart which is helping in the circulation of the blood and taking care of the transportation of different materials. But how the transportation is taking place in plants? If you remember, we have discussed in the starting of the chapter about the photosynthesis. In that we have discussed that how the different things are transported. So number one is plants, they need less energy. Why they need less energy? Because they do not have to move and therefore they have slow transport system. Transportation of water, if you remember, we have discussed that it takes place by the help of vascular tissues, that is xylem. Okay, xylem tissue is helping in transport of the water and minerals to different parts of the plant. In very tall plant, transpiration is helping in the transportation. Okay, then transport of the food is taking place by the help of the phloem tissue, and this process is called as translocation. So let's discuss about our next system, that is next life process, that is excretory system or excretion in human beings. As you can see, this is the diagram of excretory system. Excretory system is having two kidneys, a pair of kidneys, pair of ureters, then urinary bladder is there, urethra and sphincters are there. So this is a typical urinary tract or excretory system of the human being. Now, the functional unit of the excretory system is called nephron. You can see this diagram of nephron. Nephron is basically having three parts. One is this cup-like structure which is called as Bowman's capsule. It is having a network of the vessels and this forms glomerulus. Then this U-shaped loop you must be seeing. This U-shaped loop is called as Henle's loop. Right? Now this Henle's loop is basically U-shaped loop. Fine. And this is covered by the network of the blood vessels. You can see here. And then this long tube is called the collecting duct. Apart from this, there is one portion which is called as PCT, that is proximal convoluted tubule, and this is DCT, which is called as distal convoluted tubule. So nephron is actually helping in the filtration of the blood, and it is helping in taking out your removal of the your impure substances from the blood. So nephron is composed of tangled mess of tubes and a filtering part which is called as glomerulus. The glomerulus is network of blood capillaries to which renal artery is attached. You must have seen over here the renal artery is attached to this glomerulus. The artery, all of you know, it carries the oxygenated blood. So artery which takes blood to the glomerulus is called the afferent arteriole. So the name of this artery, renal artery, or we can call it as afferent arteriole, and the one receiving blood from the glomerulus is called efferent arteriole. Right? So glomerulus is enclosed in a capsule-like portion called Bowman's capsule, and the Bowman's capsule, this is your Bowman's capsule or Bowman's cup. This Bowman's capsule is extended. Okay, you can see the Bowman's capsule extend into a fine tube which is highly coiled. This highly coiled tube is called as the proximal tubule. Okay, tubes from various nephron converge into a collecting duct which finally goes to the ureter. So there is three-step filtration. The number one is the filtration which is taking place inside this Bowman's cup, and that process is called as ultrafiltration. During this filtration, the important things from the blood such as glucose, etc., it is reabsorbed. In this Bowman's cup, the inner lining of this cup is perforated. Then in U-shaped tube which is called as Henle's loop, there is second process which is taking place which is called as selective reabsorption. Different ions which are required by the body, they are reabsorbed over here from this network of the blood vessels. And then the waste material, it is collected in this collecting duct, and through this collecting duct the waste materials are transported to the ureters of the kidney. So how the formation of urine takes place? Just now I explained you the three steps, that is ultrafiltration, selective reabsorption, or it is also called as tubular reabsorption, then secretion. So urine formation is involving three steps: glomerular filtration or ultrafiltration. Here the nitrogenous waste, glucose, water, amino acid filter from the blood into the Bowman's capsule of the nephron. Then there is selective reabsorption or tubular reabsorption in Henle's loop, where the useful substances from the filtrate are reabsorbed back by the capillaries surrounding the nephron. Third is secretions. Extra water, salts are secreted into the tubule which opens up into a collecting duct and then into the ureter. So urine is produced in the kidney, passes through the ureter into the urinary bladder where it is stored until it is released through the urethra. The purpose of making urine to filter out waste product from the blood, that is urea and other nitrogenous waste produced in the liver. So this is how the urine formation takes place. In exam, the diagram of the nephron is asked. It is very, very important how urine is formed. This question is also very important. And what are the components of urine? So urine, basically the main component is water. Apart from water, there are nitrogenous waste and urea. So these are the components of urine. So excretion not only takes place in animals, but it also takes place in plants. So how and what plants excrete? So excretion of oxygen is there in plant. All of you know this, that during the process of photosynthesis, oxygen is the excretory product, right? Carbon dioxide is also excretory product in plant during respiration, right? And water vapors are being excreted by the process of transpiration. All these things are excreted by the help of stomata, which are present on the lower epidermis of the leaf. Apart from these three, the other waste material are, they may be stored in the leaves and bark of the tree, which fall off from the plant. Then plant, it excretes some waste into the soil also. Then gums, resins are also the waste material of the plant in old xylem tissues. Some metabolic waste in the form of crystals of calcium oxalate is seen in the leaves of cloacacia and stems of jimmican. Jimmican, all of you must be knowing that it is a sort of vegetable. So these are all excretory products which can be seen at different parts of the plant. So children, this is your home assignment, that you will write down the difference between artery, vein and capillaries. You will also write down the difference between blood and lymph. And the most important question is that you will explain the double circulation in human beings with the help of flowchart. I request all of you to please practice all the diagrams of this chapter. This chapter is very, very, very important from the point of view of your board exam. Diagram based questions will be there, so you have to have practiced the diagram. I have given you one for the practice. So the question will be that identify the diagram and label the different parts. So I hope you must have identified this diagram. It is our human digestive system. So you have to label from 1 to 12. These types of questions are asked in board. That is why I have given one for the practice. I hope you will enjoy doing these questions. We will discuss the questions in the class and you will send me your assignment after discussion. Thank you very much. Have a nice day and we will meet again for next topic.